Jeff from earlytrauma.com again, talking about the TDCs, the Trauma Disrupted Competencies. Jeff, you always do a great job in just describing what the TDCs are.
Well, the trauma disruptive competencies are ways to look at children's behaviors that provide an alternate motivation for those behaviors and simultaneously give us a chance to intervene and help the child to master something that they didn't master earlier in life.
Yeah. What I like about them is we can go back into the child's history and figure out where these disruptions occurred, how they develop the negative internal working model, where their developmental delays are, and how to help fill those holes. We can see how they learn to have emotional responses.
I've been doing children's psychology now for 20 years, and I can very safely say that I have not run across anything, with the possible exception of maybe an autism situation, that wasn't caused by trauma in some way, shape, or form. So when you go back and you see that trauma was present in a child's life, the TDCs give you a way to make sense of the behaviors that you're seeing.
So in this series, we're doing each of the TDCs. We just explained object relations and how the permanency and constancy is so important to be mastered by our kids. And kids with early trauma, it's very difficult. And with that, without good mastery of object relations, there's going to be quite a few behaviors that we see. So we wanted to bring to the audience today some interventions that we've used with families over the years that have been very helpful. I want to go back just to how we have always described object relations, as in the value of peekaboo, which leads us to our very first intervention, is to be able to play peekaboo with your kids.
Just a brief introduction. Object permanence is the ability to hold a picture of something in your head when it's not in your immediate perceptional field. Object constancy is to know that something is the same even though it's presenting slightly different. Okay, now these are two things that are mastered in normal human development that can sometimes be thrown off by traumatic environments.
Yeah.
So when you talk about peekaboo, the very first thing, why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Well, that are you permanent? And when we play peekaboo, we do it at the earliest stage, it seems like. And even if you're caught in line at one of the stores and there's a child or even toddler starting to dysregulate in front of you, there's a good chance you're going to automatically do peekaboo. You're going to go like this, and you might wink, and you might duck behind this. And the child enjoys the experience, but it's so important to go away, come back, go away, come back. That peekaboo can be played in so many different ways. And when we talk about it as an intervention, and people will say, but my kid's 12 or 14 or whatever, you can do peekaboo in so many other ways than just hiding your face, or hide and seek is a really good game to do that with. But I think of the times that you tuck them in at night and you just cover their heads and say, where's my little Jimmy? And then you pull the covers back and it's like, well, there he is. Or where's my big teen boy? And like, well, there he is. And then when we're helping little kids get dressed, we can just pull the shirt partway down and say, where's my little Susie? And then, oh, there she is. So there's ways to manipulate dressing, bedtimes, drying them off with a towel. There's so many things that you can do to play peekaboo, again, just to build the permanency. You are there, even when they can't see you for that short period of time.
Just walking in and out of a room.
Yeah.
And then coming back in and say, didn't forget me, did you? What about pictures? How do we use pictures?
Well, there's so many different varieties of pictures these days, whether it's on your phone or it's printed out or in a scrapbook. One of our favorites is a digital picture frame where you can put pretty much the lifespan of pictures that you have for your child in this digital frame, and they're going to be present. The kids can go in and check. And I'm going to kind of skip down for a little bit to kids that have trouble at night. Digital picture frames are really great because you can, some of them have settings where you can turn them down low, or you can set them far enough away from the kid's bed that it's not going to be disruptive with
One
lights.
of the interventions with those that I really like for foster and adoptive kids, if you have pictures of the birth family,
Yes.
you can intersperse on these digital picture frames that are playing a revolving slideshow, pictures of the birth family and then pictures of your family, pictures of the foster family
It is.
and
That's so important
Yeah.
because we have to integrate their lives. Too many of our kids feel like, well, I was one person in that family and now I'm a different person in this family.
constancy,
Yes.
object constancy. Are they constant people? Were they the same person there as they are here?
Yeah, that's such a good use of a simple electronic device. That one of the kids we worked with, I don't know if you remember, she was in a therapeutic home and away from her adoptive parents, and she slept with her digital picture frame. It had such value to her.
Well, you remember when children are very young how they almost like to come in and sleep with you. They like to have you.
Oh, yes.
When they think about going to sleep, it's very comforting them to have their primary caregiver present and near.
Right.
So at night, that picture of the primary caregiver revolving in the thing acts as a
Right.
transitional object, and it just reminds the child that that my mom is still here.
Yeah.
She's not in the room, but she's still here. She's in the next room, or several rooms down the hall. The other wing.
The other way.
There you go.
And when you look at these, they're all the interventions are very sensory. Pictures are sight. Another thing that we like to use are smells, especially for girls. And we have asked moms to pick out a particular scent and to use a lotion on their daughters. Now dads can do an aftershave kind of thing. There's.
You hate to hear me say it, but I think parental sweat
I know.
is a powerful connector. It triggers the child to feel the presence of that adult, that caregiver.
Yeah. Oh, I know in the past you've recommended pillowcases that the parent take their pillowcase and not wash it, but put it on the kid's pillow. The shirts the same way. You wear a shirt, and we had a family we worked with years ago, and the girl was a teenager, and she'd come in the house, and the first thing she always said was, "Mommy smell," and her mother would wear an extra shirt over her clothing during the day, and when her daughter came in, she would take that shirt off, and her daughter would put that on. It's imagine what it's like for a child who doesn't hold their parent as permanent. How frightening that is.
And that first experience of permanent is the primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And when the primary caregivers shift and disappear, and someone else takes their place, and it makes it harder for that brain to hold that picture.
Yeah.
What about books? You're a good one for books.
Well, I brought a few, just a few to share with the audience today. One of these days I want to do more books. The Kissing Hand was one of my favorites because in this story, the little raccoon's afraid to go to school, and mom has a special intervention to help the child remember her all day long. So find that book and figure out what's going on.
That one's particularly good because it can help with object relations, object permanence at school.
Yeah.
Or during planned absences.
And with that, it's important to talk to the teachers and say, this is what I'm doing, and
Yes.
I need you to help support this.
Mm-hmm.
We've had kids that have had special corrals around their desks, and the teachers have allowed pictures of the families on that for them. So another version of Peekaboo is Where's Baby's Pumpkin? And then ideal Peekaboo of Lift the Flap. Any of the books with Lift the Flaps is a version of Peekaboo. Because our kids struggle with bedtime, you want to talk about that just a minute before I show my book?
Well, real quick, when object permanence isn't developed in a child, they may have difficulty sleeping. what's been reported to me is that they have this feeling that they cease to exist when they go to sleep, and it's very terrifying. So there's a lot of times there's difficulty sleeping, and there's difficulty once they get to sleep with a lot of nightmares. Um, the old prayer, now lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep.
If I should die before
If I should die before my wake, which is very terrifying to a child without object permanence.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is, I'm still there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, talk about waking. So it goes through that whole sequence.
Yeah.
So when we look at sometimes sleep problems, we look at object relations.
Yes. So
And
this was
permanence.
one of the books. I have a number of other books around sleep. What happens when people sleep? What happens when animals sleep? What happens if you have difficulty sleeping? This book, it was a short synopsis of all of those. That actually it talks about the nighttime routine, which a lot of our kids don't have, and then what happens if you struggle going to sleep, and what happens to animals when they sleep. And so it's just, again, this is a cognitive intervention to get these pictures into the child's brain and help the parent refer back to, well, remember in the book, remember this. So it's not, the parent's not lecturing, but giving the kids opportunity to hear from other people. And then the last one that I wanted to bring today was The Invisible String. It's a really popular book in the foster adopt world because our kids lose so many people in their lives, and it's like, where are they? What's happening to them? And this book uses the analogy of having a string between all the people in your life, so that there is still a connectedness even though you're not with them.
Imagine the power of a child who can't picture someone there when they can't see them,
Right.
and now they have this concept of a string.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great books.
Yes.
Great books. What about a transitional object in general? Give me some school examples of transitional objects.
We had this really great mom who worked with so many great moms, and she had a teenage daughter, and what she did was she crafted this teeny little doll and named it after her, so we'll call her Susie. So it became a Susie doll, and the girl carried that doll in her pocket all day long, and it was something that she could feel. It was a transitional object. It was an object related to the parent. Now, how many times we do see toddlers with blankets or dolls or bears. That's their representation, and that's what we're talking about here, to craft, to work with the child to figure out what can be a reminder of
their presence and existence. I know you've had a lot of success with little keychain sized pictures of moms when they go to school, okay, that they can look at throughout the day. I know one time I used a really keychain sized picture frame that actually had the ability to record a small verbal message.
Yeah, and I've taken families' photos of crafted them, they're in a particular size, laminated them, hole punched, and put them on a keyring, which can go on a backpack. So it's nothing overwhelming that the child's going to be pointed at as being different. This is just
I've seen some success sometimes. We've seen some success sometimes with children who have difficulty behaving in school, and if it's an object relations, object permanence problem, sometimes a midday phone call to mom.
Oh yeah.
Just to make that reminder that my mom is present. Because remember, a lot of the decision in early childhood and infant and toddlerhood, a lot of the decisions that are made are really, I'm putting words where there are no, but what would my mom want? What would my mom think about this decision? So sometimes that midday phone call is enough to remind the child that my caregiver is present.
Yeah.
What about redirective statements?
Well, I want to back up to the football thing.
Okay.
There's also, parents can write notes, put notes in lunchboxes, hide notes in books, and those are concrete pieces. teachers can be supportive if they say, oh, you know what, I just got an email from your mom and she's just saying hi. You know, if you can't take the time or disrupt a class to have a phone call occur, a teacher can just be supportive and say, you know, your mom just said hi. All right, now.
With texting and stuff, yeah, even
Oh,
with,
yes.
with texting,
Mhm.
you know, let's take a picture of this project you just
Oh,
did,
yes.
and you know, I'll text it to your mom.
Right, right. Okay, now, sorry for interrupting, but redirective statements. You're such the cognitive person in the group. Tell me about redirective statements.
All right. Substitute caregivers like daycare personnel
Mhm.
or teachers or a coach,
Mhm.
all of them can do verbal redirections of the child's attention. That was awesome. I bet your mom and dad would love to see you do that.
Well, that's for that. Let's take a picture and send it to them.
Yeah.
Does
So just
that.
those, you know, those statements of, oh man, you know, I wonder, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think your mom would think of that? You know, and you can do it in a tough way, or and as long as you're not condemning. Man, I think your mom would really be worried about this behavior right now.
Mhm.
And if it's an object permanence, object relations origin for the the
Right.
problematic behavior, if they're not able to hold that primary caregiver in their head, it I've seen this make work wonders.
Mhm.
I've seen
Yeah.
children be able to stop themselves just with that thought. Ooh.
Yeah, she is alive and well.
Mhm.
She is interested. And then another one is, you know, we talk so much about narration and just be able to narrate what's going on. Just a general narration. You're going off to school today and there's a good chance that by lunchtime it's like, I'm not gonna be existent for you anymore, so this is what I'm gonna do. You know, whether it's using the interventions from the kissing hand or you know, there's going to be a surprise in your lunchbox. Something that is narrating. You're going to get starting to get scared, and I'm taking care of this. You're going to name it for them up front. You're not going to hide from it.
You know, so many times I hear that parents, they go on vacation or they go away for a few days, and when they come back, the child just
Oh, nasty.
punishes them.
Yes.
Punishes them as if they did something wrong.
Right.
In an object permanence object relations
Mhm.
TDC, the reason for that behavior is the child really was terrified at the
Right,
absence. So
right.
tell me a little bit about the picture postcard
Postcards.
intervention.
And this is really helpful for kids being away or parents because you can do it both ways. You now with all the text stuff that's out there, you can actually take a picture and turn it into a postcard and send it. So you can do family pictures and make postcards out of them so that the kid's getting that. I know one family whose son was in a residential treatment facility and they would take pictures of activities together and then mail them as in their correspondence back and forth.
This idea of object permanence and relations is so alien to think about sometimes. You know, we all have the shoulds in our head. You know, I should be able to go to a concert on Saturday night and leave my child with grandma, and it shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
And because of that, those shoulds, we often don't think they could be terrified
Right.
during that experience. Their systems could be anticipating abandonment in those circumstances. So even scheduling connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to be away for 3 days. I'm going to call you in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to call you in the afternoon, and I'm going to call you in the evening. Just those contacts can sometimes help children
You know,
in absence.
made me think about one of the clients I worked with years ago, an outpatient. Her daughter was in residential, and what I had her do was she bought a box of snacks, and she wrote a post-it note and stuck it on every one of those, and some of them she just used Sharpie and wrote a note on every one of those snacks, and which actually was a game changer for her as she wrote these things. She had more empathy for her daughter, and then her daughter, these snacks were used by the therapist on the other end that the girl could eat the snacks and talk about the family relationships and the disruptions, and that just using a snack and a note as the transitional piece.
The last one we want to go over with is what we call element number 3, general narration. If you're assuming that your child may have a problem with object permanence and object relations, then just narrating that. I wonder if a part of you doesn't hold a picture of me when I'm not present.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it's hard for you to make decisions then without that feeling like I'm present with you.
Or that you get scared when I'm in the other room. I mean, really simple things that, or that you're afraid that when I come home from work, I'm going to be mean and vengeful or something. That, so yeah, we talk about it.
And as with all the TDCs, the object permanence and object relations provides the opportunity to go, this is just something that happened to you when you were younger. We can fix it now.
Yeah.
We have things we can do that can catch it up. And this is the big one.
What's that?
I always end with a positive. This can stop being a problem for you.
Yeah.
We just have to, have these experiences.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, thank you all for listening. We hope you've learned a little bit from us on object relations. Check out the website, earlytrauma.com, our Facebook and Instagram social media as well.
We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks very much. Bye.